Good morning guys. Today's video I'm going to be showing you how to build a raised vegetable bed. So what we're going to be doing today is building a raised vegetable bed here. It's going to be quite a small one and I'm really just trying to make best use of the space. But what I want to do is make sure it matches these ones I've already got here. So all of these raised beds here are made out of decking boards. So really, great thing about decking boards is they're fairly cheap to get hold of, but they're also pressure treated and things. So they're quite robust. So they're going to stand up to the different sort of elements. But you can make your raised beds out of metal. You can make them out of pallet wood if you're prepared to break apart the pallets. You could make them out of railway sleepers. It's quite often a good one. But there's nothing to stop you doing it out of almost any material. I've seen brick raised beds which look really nice, but obviously a bit more effort in building those. So in terms of tools and materials, it's nothing too complicated. By the way, I'm no DIY expert, so we have to keep it quite simple. First off, you're going to need your sort of decking boards. They're obviously going to build the sides of your beds, but you're probably also going to need something, and I've got this that was in my garage, to use as a post to secure the boards together and sort of create the structure. In terms of materials, you're also going to need some screws, obviously. Tools, it's nothing too complicated. Obviously a drill or an impact driver, measuring tape, pencil and set square. Again, just fairly accurate measurements. You want all your pieces to be the same length. So when we get into the measuring, you've got to, do have to take a little bit of time with this. Finally, a saw. I'm going to try and have a go using my hand saw, but obviously if you've got a sort of a portable sort of circular saw or something, that'll do the job a lot quicker. Now, step one of building raised beds is first to get all your measurements, know what sort of size you're going to cut your pieces to. Now, just two sort of important rules with this when you're creating your raised beds. Rule number one is that you don't really want the width to exceed 4 foot. The reason for that is if this bed was 4 foot, I think it's a bit shorter than that, but if it's 4 foot, I can reach maybe 2 foot in, and then on the other side I could reach the other 2 foot, so I can quite easily reach the entire length of the bed. If this was a 5 foot or 6 foot wide bed, it'd be really difficult for me to reach the middle of the bed, making weeding difficult, making planting difficult. So try to keep the width of your beds around about 4 foot. Now, rule number two is if you're making a bed that is maybe longer than 6 foot, you're going to want to put a post in the middle in order to sort of secure it and stop the bed sort of wobbling. And just on that note, here is an 8 foot bed where I haven't done that. And as you can see, there's lots of play and wobble in the board. So step two is to really sort of mark up your boards with where you're going to make your cuts. Now, just on this point, it's not like you're making indoor furniture or anything, but you do want to be quite accurate at this because otherwise, you might notice it and, it's going to be there for quite a long time. So, do take a bit of time with this. So what's going to hold your raised bed together is the post. So what you need to do is cut pieces of post to about the length of your, the width of your, 3 or whatever number of boards put together. Now, I'm using 3 boards because that gives me quite a nice height. It's slightly raised up. The main reason I use 3 boards though is because I've got dogs and things. I don't want my dogs constantly trampling my vegetables and things. But if you don't have that problem, and you want to use raised beds, you could just use 1 board or even 2. It really doesn't matter. Or if you've got problems with bending down and things, you could do 5 or 6 boards and make it really tall. It's totally up to you, but I find 3 is quite a good number. It looks quite nice and keeps the dogs out of the vegetable beds mostly. Now, once you've done all your cutting, you can start sort of arranging your boards, checking your measurements, checking your cuts are okay, and then starting screwing them together. Now, have a think about how you want your corners to overlap. Is the short side touching into the long side, or is the long side sort of touching into the short side? It makes a difference because obviously the width of the board will change. So just think about that when you're doing this yourself. And yeah. Now, once you've got the first board in place, it's pretty easy. You can just start butting the boards up to each other. And, hopefully, if everything's been well, you've got a nice sort of square surface. The only other thing I'd mention on this is I'd probably do about 2 screws per board. You don't want to do too many, because like, there's no point doing like 3 or anything, because wherever the screw holes are, you'll you know, it's an entrance for like damp and things to get into the wood and start rotting it from the inside. So ideally it's as fewer screws as possible, but you need to be relatively secure, so 2 is a good number. Right, so it's starting to rain now, so I'm going to try and speed this bit up. But you know, once you've put together your sides, you can start putting together your, you know, your top piece and things. And a bit like the sides, if you get the sort of first corners lined up, the rest of your planks should just follow suit quite nicely. So I get that one in there, and then it's just a case of lining up this side so you get it right. You get a nice square top to it, because that's what you want. You want to, you know, you're not too worried about what the bottom looks like. You're not going to see that, but the top, you want it to be pretty flat. So just spend a bit of time just lining things up, getting it nice. So there you go, there's the raised bed. It's starting to pour down with rain now, so we'll come back tomorrow to fill it up. So back now in the morning, rain's stopped, still a bit wet and stuff, but we'll carry on. So raised bed is made. All I've done is I've moved some of the bark that was there and cut away most of the weed membrane, just so that the soil is sort of exposed for what we're, you know, about to do. Now, filling your raised bed, there's no sort of getting around it. It's actually quite expensive. It's incredible, you know, how much volume you need to sort of fill. But there is one sort of ancient German technique, I think, called Hugelkultur, which is where you can basically sort of sit logs like this at the bottom of the bed, and then, you know, sort of pour your growing medium on top. And what this does is it takes up some of the volume, but also is kind of you know, an investment in nutrients. As this stuff breaks down, then the sort of nutrients will be released. The great thing about using logs as well is that, you know, they sort of decompose through sort of fungal decomposition. So you know, you encourage the sort of diversity of organisms in your soil, which, you know, should hopefully help with, you know, healthier plants and, you know, less disease. Now, what to fill your beds with? The absolute sort of optimum would be to sort of mimic a kind of forest floor, filling with topsoil and then kind of capping with compost or manure or some kind of other organic matter. But getting hold of that much topsoil is really quite difficult. So what I found works, and what I've done in these beds here behind me, and I've had really good success, is just filling them up with compost. Now, I have made a video on how to source compost cheaply. Hopefully I'll post a link to that video, which, you know, if you're looking at maybe a cheap way of getting really, you know, sort of large amount of compost delivered, I've sort of got you covered there. But yeah, I'm gonna fill these up. So guys, that's pretty much it. Once filled up, you can just sort of firm it down, level it and things, and then you're really ready to plant into it. So yeah, I hope you like this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you all soon for more videos.